Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. Today we're just doing a quick little mini review on the new Pat McGrath highlighter. So I ordered this and the 3 quads, and I just received this, but I still haven't gotten a shipping confirmation for the quads. So I figured I'll go ahead and put up a mini review of this just so you guys can see it while it's still in stock. So this is the Pat McGrath Sublime Skin Highlighter. It's 6.5 grams. I believe it was $65, but if I'm wrong, I'll put a note down here at the bottom of the screen. And this is made in Taiwan. The first ingredient is the synthetic Fluorphlogpite, which is the synthetic mica. And then mica is actually the second ingredient. So I will have ingredients listed down below for those of you who are interested. And let's take a look at the actual highlight. So here we go. You can see this is actually incredibly heavy. It's very weighty. You have the PML logo here, and you can see how thick the lid is. And the highlighter itself is still heavier than the lid. It's huge. It's gorgeous. So I was afraid seeing the photos that this would be like as big as like the Charlotte Tilbury highlighter, but the packaging on this is definitely smaller. Let me show you those in comparison real quickly. So this is the Charlotte Tilbury, which is 11.5 grams versus the 6.5 grams for Pat McGrath. If you take a look, the colors actually look kind of similar. To me, when you see the light, I think the Pat McGrath looks a little lighter. So we're gonna take a look and I will compare these at the end. So let's start with a swatch here. So here's the shade. It actually looks a little bit more champagne on my finger than I expected it to, but it's definitely gonna be rosy. So that would definitely be deep here. This actually reminds me of kind of a cross between 2 of the Chanel kind of blush highlight colors. Also gonna put a swatch here on my wrist so you can see if there's any difference. And I wasn't sure how well this highlighter would work, whether it would be too dark as a highlight. So I didn't put any blush on my face. I figured we can try it actually as a highlighting blush as well. I'm gonna move you in closer and let's go ahead and start playing. This is the Chikuhodu Z, I believe it's a Z2, it's the highlight brush. And here is the highlight. We're gonna start off just with putting this on the cheek. So let's see how much this actually is. So putting it on with that, actually, it goes on very subtly. So I'm gonna build that up a little bit. Yeah, that works as a highlight actually. It doesn't have to be as deep as a blush, but I do wanna see if I use a different type of brush, if it puts the pigment on a little bit too strongly. I'm actually gonna take more of a cheek brush. This is the Refer 04, and let's see what that does. So surprisingly enough, and I think probably the grooves in this actually help a lot, but you know, pigment comes up on the brush, but only in small amounts. So it's not overpowering. Yeah, you can see even with a more dense brush like this, you're still getting a subtle highlight. And actually the highlight works really well on my skin. I was afraid, being Pat McGrath, that it would be a very blinding highlight, but it's not. I really like this color. All right, let me add some blush too. For blush, we're gonna go into the Dior Holiday Blush. This is number 353, Rose Frisson. And I'm gonna use the same Refer brush. And this blush from Dior is super powdery, so I'm gonna knock some of this off on a cloth. All right, so let's just add a little blush and then we can add some more highlight on top. So you can see where the blush has the highlight underneath. You get a little bit of a gold tone peeking through. All All right, I have to say I am very pleasantly surprised by this highlight. I was afraid that the color would be really nice, but I would have to go in with something really light and feathery to just get a lighter application. But that's not the case with this. It is, you know, it's not hard pan, but it's firm enough in the pan that you're not getting like tons of product on your brush, but yet you're still getting what I consider to be the perfect amount. I mean, that's a gorgeous sheen here. So what's interesting about this is when you put it on your skin, you really get more of that rose gold look, but then look, wherever I have the blush on top of it, you see more gold versus the rose gold. So you can kind of get some different effects. You can see as the swatch kind of hits the light, a little bit of the gold undertones. But this, I mean, it's kind of like a rose gold champagne shade. Look at that. Just gonna put a little bit up here in case you can see the shine a little bit better. All right, I'm gonna add some lipstick and then let's go ahead and discuss and compare. This is what the highlight looks like from a distance. I have to say, I'm very happy with it. It's definitely giving, you know, a shine, a sheen to the cheeks. There's definitely highlighter there, but it's still not overly blinding. So I'd say it's kind of like medium in between a subtle and not so subtle. So you see some sheen, and obviously I put on, you know, a fair amount of product. If you want it to be subtle, this is something that this particular formula seems very capable of. So I really like it. I really like the color for my skin tone as well. I think the pinkish tones to it actually tie in really well with kind of that rosy cheek look that a lot of people are looking for, specifically during the winter months. And I'm very happy with this particular highlight. I'm very glad I ended up getting it. So I will wear this highlight all day and I'll test it out and see how it wears, whether it fades or anything like that. But I do think, you know, initially on application, it looks gorgeous. Let's go ahead and compare it to some other colors though. The first one I want to compare is the Charlotte Tilbury Superstar Glow Highlight. And you can see in the pan, they look kind of similar, but the Pat McGrath has just a little bit more shine and shimmer to it, whereas this one looks a little bit flatter. Now I know from wearing this that this one actually has a very strong metallic sheen to it. So we're going to swatch these on my arm. So it actually looks a lot lighter here than I expected from the swatch. But again, I feel like this swatch here is very deceiving because it doesn't go on that heavily. So let me see if I can actually kind of dampen that a little bit. So that's a little bit lighter version of it, but you can see the Charlotte Tilbury actually swatches a lot lighter. There's more gold in it than rose, and the Pat McGrath definitely has more of that pinky undertone. So it depends what you're looking for. If you want more gold, Charlotte Tilbury definitely has that. So if you're taking a look at the sheen here, the Charlotte Tilbury actually looks to be more of a satin metallic, whereas the Pat McGrath looks like a stronger metallic. But on the cheek, I actually felt like the Charlotte Tilbury had a stronger metallic look than the Pat McGrath does. So I know swatches sometimes aren't necessarily always the best way to show that, but I do have a video on the Superstar Glow highlight. So if you're interested in that, take a look at that and you can see what that one looks like up close as well. Now, upon swatching, the Pat McGrath highlight actually reminded me a lot of this one from Chanel. And this is the Eclat du Désert, and it's an illuminating powder. It's a very powdery product, and I can actually use this one as a blush, but I mean, you can see that it's definitely very powdery. But let's take a look at the color here. So it actually does have a similar color. The Chanel has a peachier tone to it. It's also a little bit lighter. And then here's the Chanel Metal Peach, which is more similar in finish to the Pat McGrath. So I'm going to do a swatch comparing these two Chanel products. So you can see like the two finishes are so different that the powder doesn't really combine well. But I wanted to see, I feel like the Pat McGrath is kind of similar to a combination of these two. So let's swatch. This is the Pat McGrath now. So yeah, I do think they are kind of similar, but the Chanel Duo is just a bit lighter, but color-wise, I think they're pretty close. The Pat McGrath is a little bit rosier, but when you combine these two, you do have more of the similar finish. So I would definitely say the Metal Peach from Chanel has the most similar finish to the new Pat McGrath. This is the Westman Atelier Peau de Pêche highlight. Let's just see how this compares. I think this is going to be peachier, but yeah, it's definitely peachier. And let's compare. This is the Hourglass Ambient Strobe Light palette, or the metallic strobe lighting palette, and let's try this shade. Oh, definitely very different. So this is Pat McGrath. This is the Hourglass. Let's try the last shade here. Yep, nothing like it. And then let's try this Pearly Amber shade from the Guerlain Meteorites. And I don't think this shade is going to be the same, but I was wondering about the finish. We're gonna try Pearly Pink. And I'm gonna mix those two together. So here's a mix of the two. And let me put another swatch of Pat McGrath here. You can see that the finish on these has some similarities, but the Pat McGrath actually is a little bit brighter, but otherwise they do have fairly the same amount of light catching properties. I think the Guerlain might look a little bit less creamy than the Pat McGrath. As I mentioned before, I do think swatches don't really give you a true idea of what this one looks like on the face because it actually goes on very subtle compared to what it looks like in a swatch from a finger. And that's true of most of these highlights, but not all of them. For example, I think the Charlotte Tilbury goes on a little bit deeper than this one does, a little bit more metallic looking. And, you know, like some of these Chanel ones go on a little bit lighter as well. So I think it really kind of depends on the formula. This particular formula really feels very creamy, and I think texturally and application wise, it's probably most similar to the Guerlain Meteorites Pearl Dust palette with how it goes on and applies and kind of looks on the cheek. And it also reminds me a lot of the Chanel Metal Peach highlight. However, that goes on a little bit lighter even than the Pat McGrath. So that one's firmer in the pan than the Pat McGrath is, but they're probably the closest to each other overall. It has been 6 hours. I want to show you how the highlight is holding up. You can see that it is definitely still present, and I think it looks nice. I'm gonna move you in just a little closer. All right, so here's the highlight up close. You can definitely see some of the gold there. It has now been just after 10 hours, and you can see the highlight. It doesn't really seem to have faded at all on my skin. It's held up well. Let's come in closer. And here it is up close. Overall, I'm really happy with this highlight. I think it looks gorgeous, and I love the amount of light reflection that I get from this, yet it doesn't look sparkly at all. So I'm not picking up on any like glittery pieces or anything like that. It truly looks more like a shimmer versus glitter. And that's how I prefer my highlights. I also think it kind of blends in pretty seamlessly, and I really appreciate how lightly it goes on. So even if you pick up just a little bit with your brush, it goes on in a subtle manner, but it's still there. You're not like pressing hard with a brush to pick anything up like you kind of are with the Chanel Metal Peach. But on the skin, you can go subtle, or you can build it up and make it a little bit more impactful. So I'm very happy with this, and I'm glad because I've been getting a little disappointed by some of the highlighters recently. Like, honestly, Charlotte Tilbury, you know, was a little bit disappointing to me. So very happy that this one kind of met and exceeded my expectations for. I hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions about this product, let me know. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when my next video will pop up, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks so much and have a great day.